The latest chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 237, has finally had the battle between Hajime and Kashimo and Sukuna taking place. And honestly, with Kashimo revealing his curse technique, we finally got our first introduction to his real strength. And I honestly believe Kashimo, as crazy as it sounds, might have the potential to surpass Gojo and give the best performance against Sukuna we've had yet. Now, I don't think he will win the fight, but I definitely think he will put Sukuna somewhat close to death. Kashimo, being the raw smoke demon he has been since his introduction, has literally been living for this moment. He's technically already died once, so he has no fear of death, and I think it's safe to say it would hurt him more to not be able to give Sukuna the fight of his life than losing. He quite literally wants to be humbled by Sukuna. And when I say he can surpass Gojo, I'm not saying that Kashimo will be able to take Gojo in a fight, but if you've noticed, Gege has pretty much given us the best of both worlds with these Sukuna fights. We had the battle of the strongest where, obviously due to Gojo's skill set, Sukuna had to find a means to bypass Infinity and was holding back in terms of him being forced to use a certain skill set to defeat Gojo. Would he have been able to defeat him otherwise? It's definitely a possibility given he took a lot of attacks head on to adapt to Gojo's moves. He couldn't use multiple techniques at once during the adaptation process. He also arguably could have taken a different approach with the domain battles in general if he never had the 10 shadows. And also, this reincarnation into his full-on form might have essentially given him a revive even if Gojo managed to kill him or hit him with a full infinite void. So there's a lot of arguments for both sides. But we had an amazing battle of Sukuna and Gojo going back and forth, and a lot of spur of the moment plays that made the fight tense throughout its entirety. Regardless of how you feel of the outcome, you can't deny being on your toes every chapter. After Gojo's defeat, he said he had fun and he felt bad for Sukuna since he couldn't use all he acquired, which is naturally due to Gojo's Infinity that pretty much stops everything except you know what. But the fact is, once Gojo's Infinity was out of the way, it was an instant defeat. And almost no one is an exception for this at this moment in time when going up against Sukuna. Just look at people like Ishiguro, for example. He's a good example of how people will fare against Sukuna. Although I would definitely be willing to bet Yuji could tank a lot of Sukuna's attacks, regardless of his new slashing technique. Gojo's Infinity saved him, and once he was out of the way, it was game over. But now we have a battle between Kashimo and Sukuna, and naturally Kashimo's fight is seemingly more impossible than Gojo's. With Sukuna who can cut through space itself, how can Kashimo stand a chance? Well, it seems Kashimo's one-time curse technique usage might be exactly what was needed to display a battle against a full-arm Sukuna who can fight with no restrictions in place whatsoever. We've had the 5 of the strongest in the modern era against the strongest in history, and now we have Kashimo, who is the strongest in his era, going against Sukuna. The whole strongest battle narrative was honestly not something I expected to play out the way it has so far, but knowing Kashimo's mindset, the conclusion of Gojo and Sukuna's battle, and Kashimo's actions throughout the series, and instant departure into the battle, just makes me think he will actually achieve his goal of not just being defeated by someone stronger than him, but leaving his mark on the strongest in history and learning the answer to his question. Kashimo's curse technique, Mythic Beast Amber, enables him to surpass the limits of mankind by transforming his body to a state where any phenomena that can come about through the application of electricity becomes a weapon he can use when he's attacking. Not only does this drastically boost all his reactions, speed, etc., but he has the clear drawback of his body crumbling once his technique ends. So he's already pretty much guaranteed to die after this, and I don't think we have to worry about any night guy BS because this is JJK after all, and this has pretty much been his purpose since the beginning, a death wish. Immediately after Kashimo activated his curse technique, he began speed blitzing Sukuna and was just doing stuff that seemed impossible. It was clear that in this brief moment he was superior to Sukuna before he transformed. Although Sukuna is injured, it's still impressive nonetheless, and Kashimo still hasn't gone a while either, so there's still a lot to expect. This opens up a lane for honestly one of the best fights in this series, since Kashimo's technique gives him a large amount of versatility. We can expect the unexpected, and another thing is we saw how strong Kashimo was during his fight with Hakari, using nothing but his curse energy trait. But now that he's unleashed his curse technique, we might actually see Kashimo unleash his domain expansion, since before it would make sense he wouldn't use it since one's domain is imbued with their curse technique. So just like his curse technique, his domain wouldn't have been usable until right now. And again, Kashimo's curse technique has almost limitless possibilities, so the same can be said for his domain. Now with Sukuna undergoing his transformation, assuming he has recovered his brain and reversed the brain damage from the constant domains against Gojo, this fight becomes insanely more difficult for Kashimo, who at this point in time has not been shown to be a user of reverse curse technique. Although I wouldn't be surprised if his curse technique, similarly to Hakari's domain, allows for functions similar to using reverse curse technique. But if it comes down to a domain battle, it can honestly go either way because again, we don't really know the capabilities of these two characters. Even if Sukuna still has brain damage, we now are in for a full demonstration of Shrine, the box, all the techniques Sukuna has under his belt, in addition to the new slashes that can be hurled at the Thunder God. We already saw Sukuna using lightning with his Kamitoke curse tool, and it had no effect on Kashimo, so I think it's safe to say going forward in the battle, even if Sukuna uses open or unleashes other techniques, they likely won't be lightning based. because this isn't like the fight in Shibuya against Jogo when he was toying around with him despite not being at full power. Kashimo is actually a challenge, and the fact that Sukuna compared him and Gojo, even if it was just on a perspective basis, that kind of mindset against Sukuna is one that only the truly strong can have. And again, with Sukuna transforming instantly after Kashimo used his can't miss lightning attack to try and destroy his head like he did with Hakari, it just further shows this will be a challenge for Sukuna. I know loads of people after the transformation said Kashimo's finished and I give him one more chapter at best, but I truly think Kashimo is going to surprise us all. Even off the small performance he's given with his curse technique, he might have actually shown feats that surpassed the entire cast so far, especially in terms of speed. And they didn't say that he surpassed the limits of mankind for no reason. Again though, everything's speculation and we have to wait and see how the fight goes, but imagine the possibilities of Kashimo's power. For example, imagine if he's able to construct an open domain or a closed domain that's sectioned off with electricity, making it completely impossible for his opponent to escape or destroy the domain from the outside or inside, since it's literally electricity forming the barrier, and it destroys or severely injures whatever comes into contact with it. There's really no limits to what Kashimo can do at this point, but I wouldn't be surprised if he manages to surpass Gojo in terms of everything outside of what I guess we can call his hacks. So that would be Infinity, Infinite Void and Hollow Purple. But I honestly think Gege is going to give us a fight to remember with this one. But the biggest issue is I guess his time limit or what contributes to the length of his curse technique usage. But so far Kashimo's doing insanely well and there's hope in terms of him pushing Sukuna's back against the wall. Because as much as I love Kashimo, I just don't see him defeating Sukuna purely for narrative reasons, same as Gojo. So the best Kashimo can do is get Sukuna to retreat or leave him in such a bad state that maybe Kenjaku has to swoop in and take him away, because Sukuna has been in 2 high div fights back to back. And if you're telling me people like Yuta, Yuji and Maki will actually be allowed to jump on Sukuna straight after this fight, I'd honestly be dumbfounded unless Sukuna is fully healed and absolutely bullies Kashimo, which I just don't see happening. I think it's more plausible to expect Kashimo to weaken Sukuna heavily and then die, giving his character the best conclusion, since that's pretty much the only purpose he has towards the narrative. Like, bro is literally alive to challenge Sukuna, so it just makes sense. And I said Kenjaku would potentially help Sukuna, since we know Hakari teleported Uruume away by shifting the coordinates of his domain. So I don't think we see Uruume again having any sort of interaction with Kashimo's fight against Sukuna at all. And also let me know down below who you think wins between Uruume and Hakari, because I won't lie, that was a fight I didn't know I needed to see until this chapter. Gege's cooking. But honestly, I don't know how Uruume kills the Immortal Man, unless we see the words "on this day Kinji Hakari's luck has run out." If you know, you know. Or we see Uruume freezing him for a prolonged period of time on some ice shell timing where you can't do anything to get out of it. But Sukuna vs Kashimo is looking to be a very promising fight. Regardless of how it ends, I just want to see Kashimo go all out and go out with a bang, because he's one of the best characters in the series, for me anyway, and ever since the Hakari fight I've been waiting for this moment, and I definitely think he will surpass Satoru Gojo in this fight against Heian Sukuna, who will be using all of his techniques with no restraints against the Thunder God. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this video down below and how you think the Sukuna Kashimo fight will go. And be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for more JJK manga videos like this one. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.